Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Looking for Love in All the Wrong Dust Jackets, a show where three disgruntled harpies talk to you about everything we love in romance, whether that's books, movies, TV shows, whatever we like. My name's Liz.
I'm Danny.
And I'm Wiggles.
And welcome to the episode, the last episode of season 2, which means after this one, we'll be taking a 2-week break before we come back with For Whom the Bell Tolls by J.C. Lynn.
Woohoo!
Yay.
But today we are talking about the Bromance Book Club by Lyssa Kay Adams. But before I get into that, I gotta warn you, I gotta let the people know that we are crass and unhinged. We're terribly unladylike. And we're gonna talk about all of them naughty times using all them 4-letter words.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
What she said.
Nice. Wiggs, what you know about Lyssa Kay Adams?
Well, okay. First of all, the Bromance Book Club is like the main series she has. So obviously we read the first one, the Bromance Book Club. But then she's got Undercover Bromance, Crazy Stupid Bromance, and Isn't It Bromantic?
I do love a punny title.
She leans into that hard. And then she also has some novellas. So we've got Wild in Rio, Love at the Games, The Prospect, and 7th Inning Heat, The Vegas Aces.
Oh my.
I don't know why they have such long titles. Also, there's some audiobooks here that I think must be just audio. They're Wild in Rio, that has an audiobook, and then 7th Inning Heat and The Prospect.
Well, and the Bromance Book Club series also has audiobooks.
Yeah, but those are the only ones she has listed on the website. So maybe she needs to update the website. Because I'm too lazy to go find more. Also, there's like a master class section of writing the modern romance with Lyssa Kay Adams. So you can check that out. There's a newsletter and things like that. And then this is what she has to say about herself. Again, a model citizen, putting the bio in the back of the book. Lyssa Kay Adams read her first romance novel at a very young age when she swiped one of her grandmother's stash. I think that's how we all got there. After a long journalism career in which she had to write way too many sad endings, she decided to return to the stories that guaranteed a happily ever after. Once described as funny, adorable, and a wee bit heartbreaking, Lyssa's books feature women who always get the last word, men who aren't afraid to cry, and dogs. Lots of dogs. Lyssa writes full-time from her home in Michigan, where she lives with her sports writer husband, her wickedly funny daughter, and a spoiled Maltese who likes to be rocked to sleep like a baby. When she's not writing, she's cooking or driving her daughter around from one sporting event to the next, or rocking the dog. And there you have it. So,
I love a Maltese.
I don't really know what that breed is.
It's a small white dog.
Oh. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I grew up with small dogs, and so I am firmly in the no small dog camp.
See, and I grew up with medium-sized dogs, and I love all dogs. I don't want one, though.
I want me that big dog privilege that says, I'm not going to talk to you because you got a crazy big dog and it might bite me.
If I were to get a dog, it would be either a hysterically small dog or just a comically large one.
See, Wiggs, your luck, though, is you would get a comically large dog.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a mean looking one, you know,
Yeah.
like a Rottweiler.
Yeah.
But it would be the sweetest dog in the world and also be the most like outgoing. So you are actually getting pulled into more social situations because your dog is just running up trying to get attention.
This is facts.
Yeah.
So anyway, Danny, this book, it does have a dog. What else has it got?
It's got hot men who play baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I do love men in the baseball pants with the
Yeah.
butts.
They're good. They're good.
So it is about Gavin,
Mm-hmm.
who is a Major League Baseball player, and he finds out one day that his wife for the last 3 years has been faking an orgasm and does not respond well to this information. I understand, but he did not respond well at all. And her response was, "Why didn't you notice?"
Mm-hmm.
So they've been fighting for months, and then he leaves, and he's on the brink of divorce, and then his teammates are like, whoa, bud, we can fix this. And they pull him into a book club for men of the team, and it's all romance books. They're trying to figure out how to fix his marriage. And hilarity ensues, really. So let's discuss.
Yes. So let's talk about Gavin's big fuck up, because it's the whole driving force of this book.
Okay. I got a lot of thoughts and feelings.
Okay, I'd like
Okay.
to hear about those thoughts and feelings. It's almost like we have a platform for you to tell me.
I was not prepared for how close to home this book would hit as a married woman, because I obviously I don't know the author's home life, but it definitely felt like there was a lot of real shit she was pulling from here. And as far as Gavin's big fuck up, and I really appreciate that she touched on this towards the end, it's a collective fuck up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's 100% they both fucked up.
Yes. Yes.
Also, it's less about she's been faking it this entire time and he didn't notice. It's a lot of things in their area that was just kind of that they weren't noticing and weren't communicating with each other. That was just kind of the culmination on it, that he realized this.
Well, let's talk about her faking the orgasm and being like, well, why didn't you notice? They were only together before she got pregnant, like a couple of months. And then they got married while she was pregnant.
Yes.
So, and she's saying that she's been faking it ever since they got married, which means he doesn't really have a lot of reference here. He just has to trust, like, because that's the thing, right? When you're in a relationship, it's, I trust you to tell me the truth.
Yes.
So, like, I'm trusting you that you're saying you're getting off.
Yes.
Yep.
And like, we later on get this explanation at the end, like cut and dry, but I did kind of feel it throughout the whole book. He hasn't had a ton of partners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't have a great reference point. And so, again, the expectation is I'm assuming that you're going to tell me if it wasn't doing what it needed to do.
Right.
Yep.
Though I will say it is so hard to talk about sex, which is unfortunate. It comes down to obviously like our culture. And I'm not going to get into that right now, but it is like really difficult to talk about something that, especially in the media, is portrayed as this like magical thing. And like, sure, it can be, but also it's dumb and it's silly and goofy and it
Makes really weird noises.
yeah, and it succeeds most of the time, maybe for the guy, usually most of the time for the girl. Sometimes it has nothing to do with you doing anything wrong. Sometimes it's just like the scene in this where they do finally have sex again when they're like trying to get back together, and like in the middle of it she's going and then she's like, nope, this isn't working and it's not going to work, and she just like stops. I'm like, that may have been something that happened to me a couple of times in my life.
Well, yeah, it's not like this easy thing to navigate and communicate about in general.
Yeah.
But then kind of like everything with their marriage overall, it's you can kind of just go along and go along and go along. But once you like break the silence on it, then it's not just, okay, we're starting from where we're at and building up to where we want to be. You're starting back at square one and then building up to where you want to be. And so none of the interactions that they have up to that point were going to be successful.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and you're not even starting at square one. You're actually starting at like -10.
Yeah.
Correct. Well, and the biggest like issue with their whole situation is that they don't trust each other enough to have the conversations and to not bruise the ego on certain situations and everything. That is largely a thing on her account because she didn't trust him enough to tell her. But he also has his hang-ups and everything and not realizing, and they point that out, that there's many things in, like going on in the house that he just never realized were a thing. That one hit me kind of weirdly. I was like, where it like he didn't notice things like sitting by the sink instead of actually like rinsing it off and putting it in the dishwasher and that kind of thing. I'm like, oh, this is why I'm single. This is why I'm single.
Or like when they were giving their daughters a bath after the Thanksgiving party, and she was like, can you please go get more towels? And he's like, where are the towels at? It's like, what do you mean you don't know where the towels are in your own fucking house?
Right.
Oh, and then he went and opened the closet and still couldn't fucking find them. That is such a man thing. And this is me, not me bashing on men, but I have done this in other people's houses.
Yeah.
Where they're like, I can't find this thing. And I literally go, it's right there. I swear men are blind sometimes.
I think that one thing that this book did well in a way that almost made me uncomfortable was acknowledged a lot of feminist talking points. And obviously that one being like the weaponized incompetence kind of thing.
Yeah.
And every time she would get too close to it, I was like, okay, you don't need to be so fucking loud. Because all the things that he's doing are the kind of things that women are afraid to get into a relationship with men because it means having to deal with that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so does he do anything like big wrong? No, but it's the culmination of all of those things making her life harder
Mhm.
that, yeah, fuck you a little bit, you know?
Well, and it takes a long time to break out of cycles,
Mhm.
right? So is Gavin doing any of this maliciously? Not the character she wrote,
No.
right? But obviously he got into this cycle maybe because that's the way, you know, things were when he grew up in his house, or maybe that's just a collection of, you know, the culture that we live in. But it takes a long time and it takes a lot of patience with each other to like break out of that.
Yeah. Well, and realistically, what she keeps telling him is the problem. And the reason that she wants this divorce is because in reaction to finding out that she's been faking it this whole time, he has kind of a meltdown and moves out of the room and isn't able to talk to her. And she feels that that is the same thing as him basically leaving her and abandoning her. And that's where I sort of lean a little then, like, that was like the first clue to me that this isn't really all Gavin.
Yeah.
Because like, no, that's you're dealing with some kind of trauma that you need to process, and that's not really about him.
appreciated that it wasn't all Gavin too.
Yeah.
I liked that she really did write a complicated relationship. Her fear of abandonment, his issues with not feeling good enough essentially is a lot of what his biggest issue is, because even though he's a professional sports person, he does have a stutter, and he you know, he didn't have a lot of relationships growing up because of that situation, even though the stutter is not terrible by any means, but still he, you know, has a lot of feels about it, and understandable.
Yeah. Well, and we find out that so they first met because she was working at a coffee shop that he went into, and they got to talking or whatever. But we find out towards the end that he'd been going to that coffee shop for like months, just trying to work up the nerve to talk to her.
Right.
And so, yeah, we see a rather insecure individual, and her just being so closed off because she needs to protect herself after what happened with her family.
Well, and one of the things that ultimately attracts Gavin to her is that when she speaks with him and he stutters, she doesn't ignore it, but she also doesn't, you know, address it. Like, it's just, he's just speaking to her. And a lot of people try to finish his sentences for him or try to rush him, and she just was patiently listening to him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they didn't really start off with the strongest of footing either, because 4 months of knowing each other that's a scary amount of time to be with somebody and then have 2 kids and a marriage.
Yeah, not just to get pregnant and then get married, but to get pregnant with twins.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and then Gavin gets called up to the majors, and then there's a whole, like, they touch on it briefly, but he kind of feels like he trapped her because he like got her pregnant, asked her to get married right away, and then when he moved up to the majors, like, she had no idea what she's getting into with having a professional athlete who's gone all the time, and now she's stuck with 2 babies.
Right.
And like, I thought it was really nice to have like both of them address the same issue entirely differently, because that's how it happens, right? Like, one thing will just be looked at so differently by both parties that it completely just, like, what even is the truth?
Right. So when we get to the top of the book, we have come in the blowback after effects of this, what they keep calling the big O, because it's this whole faking it is revealed when she first has her first orgasm with him.
Not her first orgasm with him. It's her first orgasm since they got married.
3 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
So 3 years. It was a long time.
Are you okay? But like, are you sure that it wasn't that she'd never had an orgasm with him? Because when he describes it, he talks about like she did all these things that she did for the first time. Because there's a very sexy scene, in my opinion, where she asks him while they're like getting things moving, how did he know that she orgasmed that time? And he's like, oh, well, let me tell you, because I loved every bit of it.
She said when they, like, at the very beginning of the book, when like she's thinking about it. I think she was talking to her sister. No. She said something about you haven't orgasmed with him, and she said not since we got married. So that made me assume that she had before, but it'd been a long ass time.
Well, and the other thing that's not necessarily addressed in this book, but just something to always keep in the back of your mind is not every orgasm is the same.
It's true.
So, you know, this could have been a big one.
Yeah.
Sounded like it was a big one.
Yeah.
Because he hit a grand slam and she was like, ooh, my man.
Yes.
They're flirting. Like when they do flirt with each other.
Yes, it's very cute.
It's very cute. There's also moments where somebody says something and she looks at them and goes, have you seen my husband? And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Well, especially once all of the baseball players find out that they are on Pinterest and there's just like boards of like thirst traps of them.
Yeah.
That must be a wild experience.
It's not for me.
I would hate that. I'd be like, oh my God, make it go away.
I know. I'd be like, I like every single time I see some like crazy obsessed thing with any of these pop stars, Billie Eilish makes the most sense in the world. Like her choosing to wear clothing that covers like the majority of her body all the time makes so much sense.
Well, especially because wasn't she like 16 when she got popular?
And people were like, people are gross.
Yeah.
People
They are.
fucking gross. Ugh. And I can't imagine having to deal with that in the middle of a marriage that's on wobbly firstborn legs. Like, ugh. But anyway, so the big O happens, and then he moves into this like guest room, and apparently that's not enough. So he ends up at a shitty hotel because she kicks him out and says she wants a divorce.
Yeah, the kicking him out is a big sticking point because she did say, I don't know the exact words, but essentially kicked him out. And so he's like, okay, I leave. And then she's like, you left me.
Yeah.
And he's like, but you told me to leave.
You kicked me out. That was a big sticking point. She kept bringing up, you left me. It's like, no. You don't get to claim that he left you. You kicked him out. There is a difference. He was, yes, being an asshole and being in the guest room with his feels, but he didn't leave. So I will say that I really appreciated that this book did not try to villainize one over the other. It was kind of just, here is the issues that they're having. We do get both POVs, so that's kind of nice where you see both feelings and everything. Sometimes they kind of try to villainize usually the guy.
Yeah.
In a romance novel, and I really appreciated that it wasn't one person's fault. It was both of their fault. They're not communicating. They both have issues.
Well, throughout most of the book, we are kind of villainizing Gavin more, and it isn't till closer to the end when they really break down like, no, we both kind of fucked this up here. And so for a good chunk of the book, I was like, this better end right. This better fucking end right.
It's also interesting because, like, yes, we get both points of view, but it's very Gavin dominant.
It is.
And rarely is that the case when you're reading romance novels. And
Yeah.
it was kind of refreshing.
It
kind of
was.
nice.
The audiobook narrator had a very nice voice.
Which is always great.
We like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting, though, to kind of see not only how their relationship was, but how all these other people who were so invested in their relationship like really pulled and pushed it in different directions.
Yes.
Because we have the Bromance Book Club who's trying so hard to be like, no, Gavin, learn our ways, young Padawan, so that you can
We have learned things
from
people smarter than us.
Right. What was it? The first date that Gavin and Thea, his wife, went on, and it was like Mac and the Russian were just following them around, creeping because they were so invested in it.
One of these future books in the series must be about Vlad the Russian.
Yes,
because he doesn't even get to have a name until the very end of the book, and now I need to know everything about him.
Well, apparently he has incontinent issues.
He just got some IBS,
some stinky poops.
I love that he's like, well, it's just Mac and the Russian. His name is the Russian?
And he's like, actually, it's Vlad. Just nobody ever asked.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you're definitely one of those giant teddy bear guys, aren't you?
Well, he's also in the NHL, right? So he's a hockey bro, which makes me just be like, yes, give me all the hugs. Big old strong man.
Yes.
Well, and then they also have there's a group of the baseball wives. They're called the Wags.
Which is used in so many books. It must have some root in reality. But I find it, like Thea, to be so just like diminishing and degrading. The
Yes.
wives and girlfriends.
Well, and he's now just discovering that she hates them. Like, she likes maybe one or two of them.
Right, which is a huge hang up for her because like she is trying to live up to kind of the expectation of being a wife of a Major League Baseball player, but also does not want to do any of the shit that they do.
No, and she's an artist. She wants to pursue her career. She wants to go back to school and really is in a position where she should be able to do so. Her husband is making good money.
He's making good enough money that like they would be able to hire a nanny or somebody to help with the kids so that she could go back to school.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially because they constantly point out that they're living in a house that's much lower than like what they could afford if they wanted to.
Yes. Well, and now that he's hit that grand slam, he's going to be able to up that contract.
Oh, for sure. Plus
Absolutely.
getting all of the like endorsements and shit, all that money.
Yep.
So they should be, even if they don't want to hire like a full-time nanny, just hire her for, I shouldn't say her, they're Manny's. Hire them for the days that she has class. You know, I just need you to be with the girls for this, and maybe a little extra so that she can maybe have a little time to herself to do like homework on campus or something, because 3-year-olds and homework.
Or put them in, you know,
Put them in
sort of
daycare.
daycare, right? The kids need to socialize too.
They need to learn how to socialize with people normally.
Well, and another factor that they have at play is her sister Liv, who is very anti-Gavin.
Yeah.
And not necessarily because of Gavin. She is afraid of losing her sister.
Well, at the end, we find out she didn't even know what the problem actually was. She just knew that her sister was pissed at Gavin. And I'm like, I'm here for a ride or die, but you don't need to become the problem.
Well, that's the thing about being a ride or die. Sometimes you have to be like we're taking a step back. What's actually going on? How do we fix the problem? And not, oh, we're angry at that person. Then I'm really fucking angry.
Right?
Well, I'm also for being a ride or die, but I'm also that person that, you know, being, you know, having a relationship with somebody, you know, sibling relationship, friend relationship. Sometimes you have to be able to tell them hard truths too.
Yeah.
And the fact that she wouldn't tell her what the problem is, which I understand not wanting to, it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I get that. And you don't like to air your dirty laundry in public, but this is supposed to be one of the closest people to you. And so sometimes you just got to be able to be like, okay, but let's strategize. Let's talk. Have you even talked to him about this? Because I understand why he maybe got upset.
Yeah.
Well, and kind of going back to the issue that was the like matchstick amongst the matchsticks of their relationship. When it comes to the big O conversation, I understand that she's like been faking it just to get by, but at a certain point you wouldn't like even just try nudging. Like you didn't try at all saying like,
hey, let's do it this
what
way.
Do you think about doing this position? Like there is a factor at play where she has some responsibility and she's not taking it.
Yeah. There's definitely ways to have that conversation without having that conversation.
Yes.
I still think you should just have the conversation,
Yeah.
but I understand that is not everybody's prerogative, and some people that would be a very uncomfortable conversation for them, but there is ways to be like, hey babe, do you want to try this? Or, you know.
Yeah. And like, I get what you're saying, that everybody's comfort level with talking about sex is different, but talking about sex in a marriage is extremely important.
Yes.
And being able to talk in like just plain layman's terms is extremely important, because everybody has different like connotations around different aspects of sex. So yeah, for sure. I think it comes back to like Gavin trusted her to tell him when something was working or not, and she faked it, which means to him, you said it was good.
What I keep coming back to around to is that I think their sex lives never developed past the one night stand stage.
Yes. Absolutely.
And so like, yeah, if you're having a one night stand and it's not going particularly well, unless you already like know that person and have a comfortable rapport, you might go, okay, I'm just gonna get through it.
Yeah. Oh, I've totally done that.
Your life. You can't just say, I'm just gonna get through this, all the sex I'm gonna have for the rest of my life.
Well, and obviously the sex is representative of the rest of our lives, right? Because they're not talking about anything. Like
Mhm.
Gavin's being super distant. Thea is kind of taking everything on her shoulders instead of
Mhm.
like having conversations with him about how do we, share these responsibilities, or how do I work towards getting back into school.
And that's what marriage is supposed to be. You're
Yeah.
supposed to be able to share the load with your partner.
Yeah. And, it's not happening on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Getting back to Liv, because we were saying that neither Gavin or Thea is really villainized, but I would say if anybody would be kind of like the villain, it would closely be Liv.
I was getting real mad at her.
I was too, but I did like the fact that we got a lot of reasoning for the way she was
Mhm.
acting.
Mhm.
She wasn't just being like possessive of her sister. They only had each other growing up. And as the younger sister, right, like she's super attached to her older sister,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the person that protected her and honestly took care of her for the longest time. And it was those two against the world. So for 3 years to watch Thea kind of disappear into her marriage and like not really have your sister anymore, and then one day she's back because she's talking about getting a divorce, like, yeah, you cling to that.
Absolutely. The sad thing is I think if she would, and I think this is where it's kind of going, but we weren't quite there at the end of the book, is if she would give Gavin a chance, she would have a ride or die in him as well. He wants her to be a part of their lives. He wants her to stay with them,
Yeah, but they don't have any healthy examples of really men at all,
No, they don't.
right? Like their dad's a piece of shit.
Yes.
I do love that the consistent thing throughout the book is that Gavin is portrayed as a good father.
Yeah.
Granted, he could not find towels in his own fucking house.
Ugh, that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to punch him. But he is there for the kids. He is, doing his best. I think everyone's got to figure that situation out.
Yeah.
Anyone who says you know what to do when you're a parent, when you first become a parent, is lying their fucking ass off.
And then they got to do it twice.
And then they had it entirely unplanned.
Yep.
But that does also bring us to the other relationship that's playing a factor in everything that they're doing is their girls.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I really liked what the author did in showing how the strain was affecting the entire family through the
Mhm.
girls, with
Yeah.
Ava being afraid to like count on her dad being there, and only wanting her mom because her mom's reliable.
Mm-hmm.
And Amelia just being so excited for him to be there that she just didn't care.
Well, and not lumping them in as the twins.
Yep.
Yes.
I used air quotes very harshly there because that drives me nuts when there's a set of twins in a book, because they're always a book and in TV and everything. They're always the twins. It's like they're two fucking people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that she showed us two individual people
Mhm.
in their one set of twins.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They had different responses to things. They, were quite frankly fucking adorable.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it was like it was an entire theme throughout the book about
Mhm.
how everything is impacting the twins, and just every little thing that they did, Ava being more reserved, more quiet, more intentional, Amelia just being like super kind of happy-go-lucky, and it was enjoyable to kind of have kids that aren't just like, and these are the kids.
Yes.
Yes.
They aren't accessories. They're characters in and of themselves.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot riding on their relationship, and it's almost like Gavin's the only one who sees that. Like, she is already so committed to them getting a divorce that she doesn't even really want, because it's almost like because her pride was injured that she's like, well, if I take him back now, then I'm just like my mother.
Well, I mean, that's a massive amount of trauma that they're dealing with, right?
Mhm.
Is watching her mother take back her father after several infidelities, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, getting left at the very end, and their mom also being a fucking bitch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can understand how your reaction is to be like, nope, you wronged me one time, I'm fucking out.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is that so their mother married for money.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so then Liv just, that was the moment I wanted to throw a punch her. She's like, well, you're just like mom then, when, she was saying that she thinks is pretty sure that, you know, she is going to take Gavin back. That, you know, they did some work on themselves. They had this conversation and everything. And she's like, well, looks like you're just like mom. And it's like, oh, go fuck yourself, bitch.
Yeah. Everybody in this book needs therapy.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. The premise is super cute of like, we're gonna read romance books to understand women better. And you know what? It's not a bad idea.
It's not.
It's not a bad idea. But throughout the entire book, I was like, this is really cute and adorable. And I think what you're doing is good. You also need therapy.
Yes. That is something I do want to dive into because I had so many feelings about them taking these books and using them like a survivor guide to like get through having relationships with women. And there was part of me that was like, yeah, it's really smart for you to read work that is primarily, not obviously not all, but is most often written by women for women.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, that is great. The other part of me, and I'm so glad she fucking addresses it at the end, was like, that's actually also kind of gross, especially because it's being used almost as a manipulation tactic in some scenes where it's like, it's not even about you learning about different perspectives. It's about how can I take what she wants to get and use that to get what I want.
Well, and it was the way the guys had intended it was for him to then learn how to see things from her perspective and everything. It's not entirely the way he took it.
Right.
And he used direct lines from the book, and the guys were like, motherfucker, we told you not to do that.
Yes.
And so I appreciate that was not their intention in it.
Yeah.
Their intention was to get him to see, you know, how she maybe is seeing things and see things from her perspective a little bit. But yeah, he did take it in a little bit of a wrong direction.
Yes.
But you could see how he would do that, right?
Yeah.
Because he's been not served divorce papers, but like, you know, that's what she said she wants. And so he is so desperate to do anything in the 1 month because Thea gives him 1 month, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Or thereabouts.
From Thanksgiving to Christmas.
Yeah. To basically win her back or at least convince her that it's worth continuing to try. And so 1 month is not a long time.
No, it's not.
I
was really sad. I wanted them to have read more books because it was
Yes.
all centered around this Count book, whatever. It's a Regency era Bridgerton-esque book.
Well, it's hard to remember what the title is or even what the main characters' names are because he made fun of them in his like his perspective all of the time.
I know the main female character's name was Irina, but that's because he says it constantly when it's, by the way, the narrator for the audiobook, when it went into that scene, he then started speaking in a British accent.
Oh, very nice.
I like that.
Very nice.
It was excellent. It made me very happy.
Well, we're on kind of a bit of a tangent from what we were talking about and talking about the book in the book.
Yes.
I honestly was like, I want to read this Regency romance.
I did too.
I just want the whole book now.
I think that just means we need to put a Regency romance on our list because
That's
that is
probably
what
true.
they all are all like.
I know.
Yes.
I know. Yeah, it's been a minute since we've done anything
It's
like
been
that.
a while. We should do another one.
And not a Bridgerton. I think we need
Yes.
to do a Regency that's not Bridgerton.
I think the last one that we did that was not Bridgerton was it's the Duke.
The Duke Gets Desperate or something
Yes,
like that.
yes, and that was
Yeah.
a fun time.
No, I enjoyed
a
it.
fun time.
The scene where he's putting the jewelry on her.
Oh.
my God.
Oh, that sticks with me to this day. But I at first when they like first put the book in, I was like, oh, that's cute. And as it like kept developing, I don't know where it landed on it, but I didn't always like that it was such a parallel to what was happening.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's why I kind of wanted them to have gone through more books.
Yeah.
Because one, I can say we're romance novel
Pottle as well.
yeah, romance novel experts at this point. Most of them are not super long, so he should have been able to plow because he's also on break from work now.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
he should have been able to plow through that book no problem and like gone on to a different one, maybe do a contemporary one.
I think the idea was to have all of those parallels because then at the
Yes.
end we see her being like, Gavin, the words you're telling me aren't even your own. Like, what the fuck?
Right. Also, if you're not a practiced reader, a month to read a book does feel very fast.
It's true.
And he had other things going on.
He did.
But
I do. So the reason she finds out about the books is because Liv is like, well, look what he's got in his closet. And I was like, she's like, all right then. And it's not like he murdered someone and put him in the closet. It's a box of books.
Well, and that's what Thea said too when she pulled them out. She's like, is this what Liv wanted me to find? They're just books.
well, and Gavin does acknowledge like his internal panic is the second she opens it up and realizes that it's got notes
Yes.
and highlights and shit like that. And it's like, yeah, that
Bro,
would look pretty creepy.
Yeah, sure would.
You
Bro
know?
should have bought a Kindle.
Yeah. I mean, they even mention it at the beginning. They're like, he's like, oh, well, she doesn't read those. And they're like, does she have an e-reader? And he's like, I don't know, maybe. And they're like, it's full of romance novels.
But I think that also just continues to highlight, right? Like the author did such a good job of putting tiny little nuggets in there of Thea and Gavin not knowing each other
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
right? Like you don't know that your wife is like what your wife is reading.
Or
You
not
should.
even like, even if he doesn't know what she's reading, like that she reads. She has an e-reader. You never had a conversation with her about, hey, what you reading?
Dude, some of the sexiest things that I see in like TikTok or, you know, like Instagram or whatever are women, typically women, talking about how their husbands are weirdly interested in their romance books. So they're like, tell me what's happening. And I'm like, yes.
There's a TikToker, I cannot remember what the handle is, but she tells her husband about the like filthiest shit she's reading.
Nice.
And she's like, don't look at me. Don't look at me. But they had to do this because reasons. And he's just giggling in the background or like, we'll ask a question like, why? She's like, because it had to be that way or they wouldn't have ended up together.
When we read Twisted Love, I went home after recording and I did like a full fucking act out for Pappy of the entire book. And he was like rolling, just laughing his ass off. But he also listens to this podcast. So that counts.
Hi, Pappy.
Yes. Honestly, I fully agree with the premise. Men should read more romance novels.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, for Gavin and Thea, it makes even more sense because they like to read together. That was
Yes.
something that brought them together.
Oh, that's right. I
They
completely
were reading
forgot
a
about
book
that.
together, but then they got pregnant and got distracted and didn't finish it.
Yes, because apparently he reads to her.
That's so fucking cute.
Yes.
God damn it.
And sexy.
Oh, yes, it is.
But also, like, I don't have a stutter and I don't really know anybody that does, but I have to imagine, try and put myself in their shoes of being able to read to someone and having them like completely invested in enjoying it has another layer of just like attraction and feeling safe.
Well, and that I think is the crux of their relationship is they were able to be vulnerable with things that are unavoidable because they didn't have a choice. So him being vulnerable with her about his stutter, it's there, it's unavoidable, right?
Yeah.
Like her being vulnerable about something that's happening with the girls or something like that, things that were on the surface they had no problem handling, and is probably part of why they were able to have the attraction that they did. It's all that deeper level shit, and they're frequently called out by the Bromance Book Club about this.
Yeah, it's definitely a couple of times where they're asking Gavin about Thea and he's describing stuff and they're like, no, like the next stuff, like go deeper, and Gavin just like can't.
Right? Like he knows that the relationship with her dad is strained, but he doesn't know the full extent of it.
Because she won't fucking tell him.
Right.
Exactly.
And she knows that Gavin's self-conscious about his stutter, but she doesn't know how it ultimately impacts his relationships with women.
I do like they finally have the conversations. They finally have the open conversations, and then the books are discovered and she tells him to leave, essentially, again.
Yeah.
He's all pissed off, and no, she doesn't tell him to leave. They're fighting, and he realizes that she is not going to give this a chance. She hasn't been all along. Like, she's been really kind of winning her over despite himself, but he realizes she's not going to give him a full chance, and so his only choice is to fucking leave. And so he's like, fine, you win, I guess.
Well, it's clear that if it wasn't the books, it would have been something else.
Yes.
So what are we even doing if ultimately you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop forever?
And so he leaves. Well, then he's supposed to go to New York for work, and
For like a media shoot.
yeah,
or something.
media shoot, whatever. So he's supposed to go to New York, and he went and stayed on Mac's couch and is going to New York. Well, her sister calls him and says she went to our dad's wedding, which all along she has been saying that she didn't know, she doesn't know how she feels about it. She doesn't want to go. And they had the conversation that ultimately dad's just going to leave this one too, blah, blah, blah. And so she's decided that she's going to have a conversation because she needs to fix this so she can hopefully fix things with Gavin. She's decided she wants to, but she needs to fix this. And he goes, fuck, she needs support. And he gets off the plane, and then half the fucking team go with him.
Yeah.
He goes to try to be supportive. And then when he shows up, she's like, God damn it. I was going to do the dramatic big thing.
Yeah, the grand gesture.
I was going to do the grand gesture. I did not like that he basically like wants to remarry her at her father's wedding.
That was confusing, and I didn't understand his reasoning, but you
It
know.
also didn't make sense. Like,
No.
if the idea is like, oh, you wanted the big wedding, you're not getting it in this
Yeah.
scenario either.
Right, you're just standing in a church.
Yeah.
It's not even
And
like
interrupting somebody else's wedding.
Right?
Yeah. It's one of the hockey or the bromance guys that's doing the officiating, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, what?
It's the Russian.
Right. Yeah, hockey. The hockey guy.
Yeah, you were right. You were on the money.
We're doing rewrite corner with Danny. I think what I would have liked more is when he came in to be supportive, she gets mad. Damn it, I was going to do the grand gesture. And then they shut their mouths because it's somebody else's fucking wedding. And then he asks her to do like a vow renewal.
Yeah, if he wanted to take her out into the lobby and like get down on one knee again and do the whole like, will you marry me again? But like, you know, we'll do it right this time. Not that there's anything wrong with your courthouse wedding. Absolutely nothing.
No, and quite frankly, I probably would have chosen it because the idea of everyone staring at me.
It is a little nerve-wracking, even if you are a person who's been on the stage a lot, because, you know, the people are right there. I did like, though, that when Thea was going to go chase after whomever, we didn't know, we assume it's Gavin, and she's like, no, I need to go talk to my dad. I liked that. It was a nice little twist, and also it felt there was kind of a full circle moment when she sat in her car and talked to her dad, and I liked the fact that her dad wasn't just like, oh, I'm misunderstood. It's like, no, fucker, you left us. You can't, there's nothing you can say that makes that better.
And he doesn't deny it. He goes, yeah, I suck. He's like, I loved you. It wasn't enough. I'm sorry.
I also like that what she says to him is not like a bunch of accusations or anything. Like, he asks her something along the lines of like, why don't you say what you came here to say? And she says, I don't really have anything to say to you. I just wanted to see how you look at me and compare that to how Gavin looks at our daughters.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was very sweet.
Yeah. And he was like, are you sure you don't have something to say? Because that hit, basically. A little bit.
It's like, you sure said a lot there.
Yeah. So I really liked that. I liked that they got that closure. I just think that that last couple chapters were too short. Like,
I would agree.
Yeah.
they just needed to just flesh it out and not have it be this race to the finish thing.
Yeah.
I will say, so I listened to the audiobook. We all know I listened to it on 2x speed because hello. Like, when we got to the second act breakup, there was only like a half an hour left of the book.
Yeah, it was very short. And some of the chapters that were left at the end of that were like 2 pages.
And they definitely needed to be a lot more.
Yeah. Especially because we as the readers almost needed that closure as well.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but something that we haven't really talked about is our boys in the book club.
That's for truth.
So there's Dell, who is on the team with Gavin and is the one that brings him in.
And is his best friend.
Yes, BFFs. And helps get him off the ground as he pukes all over. And then there's Mac.
He's just the best. He's the fucking best.
He's hilarious. And for some reason, Gavin just hates him. Like, is annoyed with everything that this man does and is constantly adding things to his name. So sometimes he's Braden fucking Mac or Mac Braden stupid guy, like shit like that. And then there's Yan, who we don't really get to know a lot about. So he's kind of there, has a few lines to drop in. And then there's the Russian, obviously.
Not on the team. He's a hockey player.
Yes. Mac isn't on the team either. He's a nightclub owner.
Yes.
Yeah.
And apparently there are a couple of other dudes that are not even worth mentioning. Like,
Correct.
he doesn't mention them
Yeah.
in his description of the situation. And so I'm hoping we get to know who those people are in future books, but who knows. It kind of feels like when a television show introduces a character and is like they were there the whole time, and you're like, no, they weren't.
They weren't. I promise you, they
no,
weren't.
they were not. I don't know who that is. Dawn.
I was thinking the same thing.
It's a Buffy reference.
I was figuring, because it usually is when you two cackle over there like little witches, and I'm like, what?
Well, you could join our coven if you just watched Buffy.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You walked right into that one, Danny.
I'm aware.
I really liked the Bromance Book Club boys. They each kind of played their own role. Del, of course, kind of had this like older brother vibe, and in I've been there, let me walk you through the process. Mac was a lot more complex than like the annoying kind of guy is, because he is really invested in helping Gavin. He's one of the guys who creeps around on their date. He lets Gavin crash on his sofa, and apparently he's very invested in his niece's lives.
Well, and he also has really good insights into certain things, like they're planning the date, and I love the date, by the way.
Oh my gosh, it was such a great date. It's so thoughtful.
It's so thoughtful. So he's like, we're gonna go to this like crafts store essentially, and they were like, what the fuck? He's like, you don't understand.
Yeah,
that would break me, I fear. If you're looking for a way to make me forgive all ills, if you just told me I could run wild in an art store and buy whatever I want, the answer would be yes.
Yeah, the answer would be take me, I'm yours.
Yeah.
I do love that Thea still has that hesitancy. She's like, no, I can't just have whatever I want. And Gavin's like, we have plenty of money, just buy it. And she's like, no.
I also like that she goes to buy something, pick something out that she's like, oh, the girls would love that. And he takes it out of her hand, puts it back up, and he's like, we're not shopping for them right now.
Yeah, this is not about the girls.
Yeah.
This is about you.
You are not just a mom. And, yeah.
I also
taking
love
care of you now.
So he took that out of her hand, put it down, and then was like, this one's more you. Like he picked up different washi tape that was hers. Like, sir.
Yes.
You can have me.
Yes. He was doing all the right things in that date.
Well, and then he takes her to a really nice restaurant, gets them kind of like a private corner, has to chase Mac and the Russian away. But then he's like, let's dance. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll do it.
But that was Mac's idea.
Yeah, that's the thing, is Mac
is always right.
Yes.
Yeah. He's like, ask her to dance. She keeps looking at the dance floor. She wants to. And I'm like, sir, you are too good at this. And especially because when he went in for the like, what are you doing here? Because he's like, that when he introduces the book club, Del's like, well, I've been there. This is part of what helped me. And Mac's like, I'm here for the sexy times.
Yes.
Like, I'm like, you, sir, are not. You're here for the drama.
Oh yeah, he's there for the drama for sure.
sure.
Gonna love. I need to read the second book because it's Mac's book, and I love a man who's just like, oh, I want that one, the one who's angry and yells at me.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that maybe because you're angry and like to yell?
I don't like to yell, but I am very angry.
Grumpy sunshine, bitches.
I like to seethe.
Yes, that's true.
It's true. You're good at it too.
You like to,
thank you.
You like
I'm
to
so
hold it
pretty.
in and then be like, I'm gonna kick your ass.
Yeah, because that's healthy.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
You're real pretty while doing it.
Anyway, enough about me.
Yeah. I do think though, this book series, I obviously have only read the first book like the rest of us, but like I think this would be an amazing show in the year of our 2025 because I loved so much that these men who have taken some time to unpack some things, to learn some things about themselves and about the world that they live in and the fact that women occupy a lot of it, were espousing these like feminist diatribes.
Yeah. They really were.
And I'm like, this is the packaging that this needs to go out in, like these pro athletes espousing these talking points that we already fucking know. Like we don't need to be told. We know it, right? But the people who do need to hear it are 1,000% more likely to hear it when it comes from like societally a well accepted and loved man.
Yeah, I just need like a couple of TikTok videos that are of this show where they're in their like whatever uniforms or kind of whatever more masculine attire, talking about like, you really need to listen to women. Like, what is she saying?
Yes.
Yes. Ugh.
Yes. This needs to be made into a television show.
Yeah.
Adaptation might need to happen in order for it to be like played out more, but do it.
I don't think it would be that hard, really. Like, there's plenty of scenes in here which you could flesh out into something.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think you could start out by letting us get to know the book club bros better.
Yes.
You know, and so then it becomes kind of about them and the relationships that they have and less about just one couple.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Also, totally subjects here. We have not talked about the sexy time, which is more required for the plot in this book than I think most.
Yes.
Yeah.
I briefly touched on their kind of first sex scene, which is when Thea comes back and they're starting to kind of maybe get back together. They're starting to like build back to having their relationship. She's horny.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, hot baseball man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once again, have you seen my husband?
She doesn't need to go look like shopping for men outside. She's got them at home, you know?
Yes.
She's got baseball player at home.
You almost said she's got hot balls at home.
She's got them too.
The balls should not be hot. That's not good.
Correct.
I mean, they shouldn't be
but-
cold either.
They're cooler than the rest of the body.
Yes, that's why they dangle.
I know.
I'm aware of a male anatomy too.
I was just... Anyway, so...
Anyway, sex scene. Go.
So, yeah. So she's coming hot and heavy. And of course, Gavin's like, fuck yeah, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I talked to Pappy about before I came over here. And I'm allowed to say whatever about this that I want. Which is like... that sex scene hit way too close to home for me, because like being in the middle of trying to get an orgasm, trying to get the lady off, and Gavin's just being like trying to be super encouraging, and she's like, that's not actually helpful, and you've kind of killed the mood.
Stop coaching me right now.
Yeah. But also stop trying to put so much on me having an orgasm, because sometimes it just doesn't, like, sometimes it's not right. It doesn't feel right, or it doesn't quite hit right, you know?
Sometimes it's just elusive that day.
Yeah, sometimes your body's like, not today.
And like, it doesn't mean that the other things that you're doing don't feel good.
Oh, yeah.
But you're at the top of the roller coaster, and it just doesn't want to go over the curve.
Exactly. And so when they like switch positions, and she's like, it's just not happening today. Like, the orgasm's not happening. And they both just got really upset because he's like, well, tell me what to do. And she's like, I don't know. I was like, oh God, yeah, that's somebody wrote that scene from personal experience. And it was very similar to my experiences. Ugh.
And there's also, because they have the fact that they are already have been in love with each other and have that connection and things like that. But there's nothing worse than a guy like just boring into you the expectation that you should have an orgasm so that they can finish. Because they have that in their head that's the loophole, is that if I just make sure she finishes, then I can finish whenever I want, kind of thought process. Like, it's very like tit for tat kind of thought process. And Gavin, I think, whether he is aware of it or not, is sort of kind of looking at this whole thing that way. That he's just, it's a box he hasn't checked off, not he's not connecting the emotion to the sex.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Let's normalize the fact that women can have their orgasm after, right? Okay, the guy's done. You're not done, so let's keep going.
Yeah.
There are other ways.
Yeah.
You got hands, you got mouth, you got other tools.
Exactly.
Yep.
Just because you're done doesn't mean we're done.
Yeah.
Well, and there's something to be said too about the fact that there is a lot of pressure being put on this particular situation because of their previous situation.
Yeah.
That causes a lot of issues in that department. It can, at least.
Yes.
So it maybe made it harder for her. It may have made it harder for him. They're too nervous. They got to chill.
Well, and then that comes back to, again, just like, you need to talk about sex and understand that sometimes you're going to flop. sometimes you're like, well, we tried something and it didn't work.
Yep.
Or, you know, it didn't work. We'll just never do that again. Or, you know, like, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect every time. It's
Let's talk about sex, baby.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. I think too, I wish they had gone a little bit further into the relationship past when they do have their night of like orgasm palooza.
Yeah.
Because I wanted like there to be like another sexual encounter where it didn't happen.
Yes.
And that was okay. Because the other thing is sex is like a whole like yarn ball of confusing shit. Like we put a lot of things on it that maybe don't belong there, and also don't bring things to the table that should be there sometimes. And it has to be okay that she doesn't finish. Or it has to be okay that she does need to take care of herself afterwards. Or you need to take care of her afterwards. Or even just that the orgasm should not be the finish line.
Right.
I would have even maybe liked a scene where like it's not working and then they kind of have the discussion on let's figure out how we maybe are going about this, or like let's have the actual the sex discussion, because yes, a lot of it is actually tied into their emotions, a lot of it is tied into their relationship and everything, but they do still need to have the conversation about maybe what works and what doesn't for them and that kind of thing. I would have appreciated a frank conversation about it.
Yeah, I think that really would have been handled great in an epilogue, because I understand that the scene that we have, the orgasm palooza, needed to narratively happen at that point.
Oh yeah.
But it would have been nice to have an epilogue where, like you said, maybe she doesn't finish and they like, you know, they take out a toy or something, or
toys can be fun.
Right. Or they have to stop in the middle and be like, okay, hold up. Could we just like take a beat and then do something different? Because like this isn't working for both of us. And I think that would have been a really lovely like continuation into this kind of realistic view that's packaged in this fun rom-com way.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
I think that brings us to the end of the book, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So if that's the end, then it must be ratings time.
Ooh,
you put a little pizzazz on it.
It is.
Put a little pepper on it there, Perry.
It is our 100th episode.
This is 100th episode. We need the pizzazz. If anything, it should have been bigger and bolder.
Damn, you're right.
Yep.
Well, anyway, since we just talked about it, what is your spice rating?
So, one of the things I really like about this is that the spice had these start and stop moments that felt really realistic, especially with having two toddlers in the house.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like there was one time where she was so close and that little toddler hand had to knock on the door, and I was with Gavin. I was like, God damn it. And so I think that the sex scenes were very realistic and I liked that. And so even though it wasn't maybe the most like get your blood pumping sort of spice, I think it was very useful and appropriate spice. So I'm going to give it a 2.5.
I was also leaning towards a 2.5. Like it's hard to gauge, like you said, because it's not like super spicy, but it is extremely important to the plot.
Yeah. Which is actually kind of difficult in romance novels. Sometimes they add the spice in just so that there's spice and there's really no purpose to it. I actually really appreciated that there was a large amount of purpose to the spice in this book.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will go with a 2.5 as well.
Nice.
Gavel, gavel!
Yeah.
What's your romance rating?
Like, it was romantic and it also wasn't. It was also a little bit more comedy than it was romance. So my gut tells me 3, and I'm gonna stay
Stick
there.
with that.
Yeah.
See, I think the interesting thing about this is we're seeing a much more mature romance, because typically we're seeing the beginning of a relationship, right? But in this, we're seeing more complicated. We're seeing 3 years in, and so you kind of have to like think of it differently. I think the problem is the comedy actually like pulls it back away from romance a lot, like you said. So I'll do a 3 as well.
Oh.
See, and I'm going to go with 3.5 solely for a couple of reasons. The date itself was incredibly romantic because he is showing that despite what he has been showing her all along, he does know her and he wants to do something special to her. And then
he does.
he does. Also, the the fact that they both wanted to end up doing the grand gesture and he just kind of got there first. And his whole purpose for going to like his father-in-law's wedding is to support her in a moment for her, even though professionally he was supposed to be somewhere else. So I'm going 3.5 just to up it a little bit.
I thought about a 3.5. I think the only thing that held me back from that was I wanted to see more from her actually trying to romance him. And I understand that that wasn't the premise of the book. She was just trying to get out of the marriage.
Yeah.
But I think that would have kind of like bumped it up more. What's your overall rating then?
So I flutter back and forth between a 3.5 and a 4. I think it was very, very solid. I think the thing that makes me want to drag it down to a 3.5 a little bit is just the ending was so rushed.
Yeah.
And I like I said, didn't love that the romance novel was beat by beat parallel. And so that's what keeps it from quite being a 4 for me. And since we've decided to go buck wild and introduce these 0.25s, I'm going to go with 3.75.
Ay.
I am going 3.5. I was also kind of waffling between 3.5 and 4. I really enjoyed the book. It made me laugh quite a few times. It made me think a lot. I did enjoy it, but the ending was really rushed. I wanted to sit in that more and really feel their reconciliation.
I'm going to agree with a 3.5, but also, again, there was a lot of waffling on it because it hit on a lot of really important things that we don't see a lot in romance books. But, you know, same reason that you guys are bringing it down is just there were some things that need a little more attention, a little bit more cleaned up.
Okay.
So, what are your recommendations?
I will flat out tell you now, I don't have one, and I have to be okay with that.
I think we need to start allowing ourselves to do that because it's better to, you know, not force it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't think of something that goes along with it.
That's okay.
Well, so mine is, it makes sense, but it's also a bit of a genre shift within the romance genre.
Okay.
And that is Persuasion by Jane Austen. And the premise of that book is basically that these two young lovers, obviously they're not lovers because it's
Jane Austen.
Because it's Jane Austen. But they are sort of encouraged apart by friends and family members. And he goes off and like elevates his status and comes back and she's still unmarried. And the bulk of the book then, when we're reintroduced to them and they are back in each other's orbit, is sort of them convincing themselves and each other that it's okay for them to fall in love again. And it's okay for them to still be in love with the other person. And it's a fantastic book and I love it. And in my opinion, it's the best Jane Austen of all of them.
Oh.
And for some reason, it just gets completely eclipsed by Pride and Prejudice, which I get it. Darcy's great, but Captain Wentworth. Oh my God. And part of the reason I was like inspired to make this the recommendation is I think the author was inspired by Persuasion because she has a line in here that comes from the Regency romance book that they're reading that basically I'm in agony, put me out of my misery. And one of my favorite lines in literature ever is in a letter that Wentworth writes to his lady love that says, "I'm half agony, I'm half hope." Basically just like in waiting to find out whether or not she'll give him a second chance. So check it out. It's fucking amazing. If you are going to watch the movie or miniseries instead of reading the book, which I totally get and support, do not watch the most recent one because it's hot dog shit.
And that's the only one I've seen, so
oh, God, it's the worst. You need to go with 2000 or you need to go with the one from the 90s. No, nothing else is acceptable. So Liz, your recommendation.
Yeah. So I'm going to recommend Love Her or Lose Her by Tessa Bailey. It is the second in the Hot and Hammered series. I don't think that matters. You could just pick it up if you wanted to, but it is also a story about two people who have been married a long time. They actually started dating in middle school, were high school sweethearts, and got married pretty much right out of high school in a courthouse Scout's wedding because he was going off to be a Marine. And for the last 4 years since he's been back from his last tour, they've really kind of grown apart. They've become very just like roommates in their own house together. And so Rosie kind of breaks down and is finally like, no, I'm done. I'm leaving. And so the entire book is them actually going to therapy. So good for them.
Ooh, therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of relearning how to be in love with each other and how to support each other. And also understanding that they have been doing things for each other. It's just they haven't been talking about it or, doing it in a way that the other one can see. So it's a nice exploration of kind of a different relationship and coming back together.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
That's the end of the episode, folks. If you like this episode, you can find us out there on the socials at Wrong Dust Jackets, primarily on TikTok and Instagram, or you can go to our website, wrongdustjackets.com, where you'll find a list of all of the 100 episodes that we've done, as well as episodes we have coming up and our blog posts. And we would like it, love it, be so happy if you would leave a thumbs up, 5 stars, whatever is available to you on your podcast listening app. That will help us a whole bunch. And that's all I've got. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.